Welcome back to Her Dark Revenge. Before we begin, I need you to stay with me until the very end, because this story doesn't end where you think it does. The morning my husband's lawyer called, I was standing in the kitchen of the house Marcus and I had shared for 6 years, trying to remember how to make coffee. That sounds small. It wasn't. For 11 days after the accident, I hadn't been able to do anything that required more than 2 steps. Breathe. Sit. Stare at the wall where Marcus had hung that ridiculous vintage Nashville Sounds poster the week we moved in. He'd been so proud of it. I'd hated it for 6 years. Standing there that morning, I would have given anything to hate it again. His name was Raymond Cole, the lawyer. He had a low, careful voice, the kind people use around grief like it might be contagious. He told me there was a matter regarding Marcus's estate that needed to be handled in person. Nothing alarming, he said, just some paperwork. Could I come in on Thursday? I said yes, because I didn't know what else to say. I said yes because saying anything felt like proof I was still here, still functioning, still a person who made appointments and kept them. What Raymond Cole did not tell me on the phone, what he waited to tell me until I was sitting across from his desk in that quiet office on 5th Avenue North, with the ceiling fan turning slow overhead and a glass of water I hadn't touched, was that Marcus had come to see him 6 weeks before he died. 6 weeks. He asked me to hold something for you, Raymond said. He opened his desk drawer and set a small black USB drive on the wood between us. It had a strip of white tape on the side. My name was written on it in Marcus's handwriting. Claire. Just my name. Nothing else. I looked at it for a long time without touching it. He was very specific, Raymond said. He wanted you to have this privately. Not at the house. Not with family present. He paused. He also left a letter. The envelope was cream-colored, the kind you buy at a drugstore. My name again on the front, same handwriting, and under it, in smaller letters, read this first. Please. My hands were steady when I opened it. I don't know how. Claire, if you're reading this, then what I was afraid of has happened. I need you to know that I didn't keep this from you to protect myself. I kept it from you because I didn't know who to trust, and I couldn't risk being wrong. Watch the drive alone. Don't tell my brother. Don't tell anyone until you've seen everything. I love you more than I ever said out loud. I'm sorry I ran out of time to say it better. Marcus. I sat in Raymond Cole's office for a long time after that. The ceiling fan turned. The water stayed untouched. His brother. Don't tell his brother. Derek. Marcus and Derek Hale had grown up in Murfreesboro, 45 minutes outside of Nashville, in a house their father built himself from a kit he'd ordered out of a catalog. That's the kind of story Derek loved to tell at dinner parties. Charming, specific, the kind of detail that made people lean in. Derek was good at that, making people lean in. He was 4 years older than Marcus, broader in the shoulders, the kind of man who filled a room without trying. When I first started dating Marcus, Derek had been the one who'd pulled me aside at a family barbecue and said, quietly, that his brother didn't fall for people easily and that he hoped I understood what that meant. I thought it was sweet. I thought Derek was protective. I'd thought a lot of things. Marcus had built a small construction consulting firm from nothing. 7 employees, solid regional reputation, careful books. He was methodical and patient in a way that made him good at his work and terrible at confrontation. He hated arguments. He'd go quiet when things got hard, fold inward, work it out alone, and come back when he had an answer. I had loved that about him and been frustrated by it in equal measure. 8 months before he died, something changed. He started working late in a way that felt different from the ordinary kind. He'd come home after I was already in bed and I'd hear him in the study, not typing, just sitting. When I asked, he said it was a project that was taking longer than expected. When I asked which project, he said the Gallatin development, and then he changed the subject in that smooth, practiced way he had. I didn't push. I should have pushed. He started losing weight. Not dramatically, not the kind that makes people ask questions at Thanksgiving. Just 2 tables away from my office. My heart stopped. He was sitting there, in a way sleep didn't fix. I asked him to see a doctor. He said he would. He didn't. In September, he drove to Gallatin alone on a Saturday morning and didn't come back until nearly midnight. He smelled like coffee and something I couldn't name, and he held me in the dark for a long time without saying anything. "I just needed to check something," he said finally. "Check what?" "Whether I was right about something." I waited. He didn't say anything else. 6 weeks later, he was dead. The police called it a single-car accident on a 2-lane road outside of Hendersonville at 7:40 in the morning. Wet road, sharp curve, no guardrail. His truck had gone through the tree line and down an embankment. They said he likely died on impact. They said it fast and with kindness, and I had nodded like I was understanding and then stood in my driveway for a long time after the officer left, looking at the place where his truck usually parked. Derek had come over that night with his wife, Patricia, and a casserole neither of us ate. He'd sat across from me at the kitchen table and said that Marcus had been distracted lately, that he'd been worried about him. He said it looking directly at me, and I'd read it as grief, as a brother's guilt at not having done more. Sitting in Raymond Cole's office, holding a USB drive with my name on it, I read it differently. I watched the drive at my sister's house in East Nashville. Her name is Meg. She's 2 years older than me, and she is the person I call when I don't know what I'm doing. She wanted to stay in the room with me, and I made her wait in the kitchen. Not because Marcus had asked me to be alone, though he had. Because whatever was on that drive, I needed to see it before anyone else did. I needed my face to do whatever it was going to do without being watched. There were 3 video files and a folder of documents. I opened the first video. Marcus was sitting at his desk in our study. He was wearing the green flannel shirt I'd given him for his birthday 2 years ago. He looked thinner than I'd realized. He was looking directly at the camera with an expression I had never seen on him. Not frightened, exactly, but resolute in a way that had cost him something to arrive at. "Hey," he said. "So, I don't really know how to start this." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I've been trying to figure out for about 4 months how to tell you what I'm going to tell you without either scaring you or being wrong. I'm still not 100% sure I'm right, but I'm sure enough, and I'm running out of time to wait until I'm more sure." He leaned forward. 6 months ago, I found a discrepancy in the Gallatin accounts. At first, I thought it was a bookkeeping error. I asked Donna to go back through the records from the last 2 years and cross-reference everything against the project invoices. He paused. It wasn't a bookkeeping error. The second video was 40 minutes long. It was Marcus at the same desk, going through documents on screen, bank transfers, invoice numbers, contractor payments that had been submitted, approved, and paid out for work that had never been done. Shell companies. 3 of them, all registered in the same 6-month window 4 years ago. 4 years ago, Derek had come on as a partner in the firm. The total amount we directed over 4 years was a little over $340,000. I had to pause the video. I sat in Meg's guest room with my laptop and I looked at the wall for about 2 minutes. Then I pressed play again. I went to Gallatin in September to look at the Ridgewood site in person, Marcus said in the third video. The drainage system that was invoiced in March, $47,000, was never installed. I walked the entire perimeter. I took photographs. He held up his phone to the camera and went through them one by one. The concrete footings for the east retaining wall are half the depth listed on the approved plans. If that wall fails in a flood event, and we've had 300-year flood events in that county in the last decade, someone could die. He set the phone down. I confronted Derek on October 3rd. I didn't tell him I had documentation. I just asked him directly whether he knew about the discrepancies. He stopped. He didn't deny it. He told me I was being naive about how the industry worked. He told me that everyone did this, that I'd been subsidizing his lifestyle for 4 years, and I should be grateful he'd let me stay ignorant this long. Marcus's voice was completely flat when he said this. He told me that if I went to anyone, a client, a lawyer, a regulator, he would make sure certain information about the financing on the Clarksville project became public, and that it would end the business and my reputation. He looked at the camera. The Clarksville financing was aggressive, but it was legal. I think he knows that. I think he just needed something to say. He was quiet for a moment. I've been trying to figure out the right way to do this that doesn't blow everything up. I know that sounds weak. I know I should have gone straight to the authorities. I needed to be sure. I needed to document everything completely before I did anything that couldn't be undone. He reached toward the camera. Claire, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I'm sorry I thought I could handle it alone. If you're watching this, I didn't. He stopped. The documents in the folder are everything. Copies of the bank records, the false invoices, the site photographs, the registration paperwork for the shell companies. Raymond has a second copy in his files. You're not doing this alone. The video ended. I sat in the dark of Meg's guest room for a long time. Then I opened the door and said, Meg, I need you. I didn't call Derek. I want to be clear about that, because later people would ask whether I had confronted him first, whether I'd given him a chance to explain, and the answer is no. I did not give him a chance to explain. Marcus had given him a chance to explain. Marcus had sat across from his brother and asked him directly, man to man, and Derek had responded by making threats. Whatever conversation Derek and I might have had was finished before it started. What I did was call Raymond Cole the next morning and ask him to recommend a financial crimes attorney. Her name was Diane Okafor. She was 43, direct in a way that felt like relief after weeks of careful voices, and she had been practicing white-collar defense and prosecution in Nashville for 15 years. She sat across from me with the printed documents spread on her conference table and read everything twice before she said a word. This is thorough, she said. He was thorough, I said. The shell company registrations alone are enough to open an investigation. Combined with the invoice documentation and the site photographs, she tapped the stack. This is not a weak case. What about the wall, the retaining wall? She looked at me. What about it? If it's built incorrectly, if the specifications weren't met, someone could get hurt. Is there a separate process for that? There was. She made calls while I sat in her waiting area drinking coffee I didn't taste. By the end of that week, there were 2 separate processes underway, one with the Tennessee Department of Commerce and Insurance, which oversaw contractor licensing, and one with the Sumner County Building Inspector's Office, which would require a structural assessment of the Ridgewood site. The financial fraud complaint had been referred to the FBI field office in Nashville. Derek called me 4 times that week. I let all 4 calls go to voicemail. His messages started careful and got progressively less careful. The 4th one, left on a Thursday evening, said, Claire, I don't know what you've been told or what you think you know, but I am asking you as family to call me back before you do something you can't take back. As family, I saved that voicemail. Diane told me to save everything. He was arrested on a Tuesday morning, 11 weeks after I'd sat in Raymond Cole's office holding a USB drive with my name on it. I wasn't there for the arrest. I found out from Diane, who called me at 8:15 while I was sitting on Meg's back porch, watching her dog chase something along the fence line. It's done, she said. Patricia called me that afternoon, Marcus's sister-in-law, who had brought a casserole to my house the night my husband died, and sat across from me while her husband performed grief he didn't feel. She was crying. She said she hadn't known. She said it over and over. I didn't know, Claire. I promise I didn't know. And I believed her, which made it worse somehow, not better. I know, I said. I believe you. How did you? She stopped. Marcus. He figured it out. He spent 4 months figuring it out, I said. He documented everything. He didn't leave me to do this blind. She was quiet for a long time. He loved you so much, she said finally. You know that, right? I looked out at the yard. The dog had caught whatever it was chasing and was carrying it around triumphantly along the fence line. I know, I said. The structural assessment of the Ridgewood retaining wall came back 6 weeks later. The inspectors confirmed that the east wall had been built to roughly 60% of the specified depth. It had not yet failed. In the report, the engineer noted that a significant rainfall event, the kind that region had seen 3 times in the last 10 years, would likely have compromised the wall within 2 to 5 years. There were homes on the other side of that wall. I read that part of the report 3 times. I thought about Marcus driving out to that site on a September Saturday, walking the perimeter alone, taking photographs of ground that looked ordinary if you didn't know what you were looking for. I thought about him sitting in his truck afterward, figuring out what to do with what he'd found. I thought about how long he'd carried it. When I'd asked him that night what he'd been checking, he'd said whether I was right about something. He was right. He was so careful and so right, and he ran out of time. There is a version of this story where I'm angry at him, where I focus on the months he stayed quiet and the weight he lost and the space that grew between us while he worked it out alone. I would be lying if I said that version doesn't exist. It does. I visit it sometimes, late at night, the way you press a bruise to see if it still hurts. But here is the other thing that is also true. My husband knew he had found something that could destroy his brother, his business, and his reputation all at once. He knew that going to the authorities meant the end of everything he built. He did it anyway. He spent the last months of his life building a case careful enough to survive without him, because somewhere in that methodical, quiet mind of his, he understood that he might not be the one to deliver it. He protected me. Even from the end, he protected me. The Gallatin firm was dissolved in the spring. I wasn't involved in the legal proceedings beyond providing the documents Marcus had compiled. Diane handled everything else with the precision of someone who had done this many times and enjoyed it. Derek's sentencing was scheduled for the fall. Diane told me wire fraud and contractor fraud in Tennessee carried significant penalties, particularly given the scope and the safety implications of the structural violations. I sold the house in March. I know that sounds like an ending, and maybe it is, but it didn't feel like one. It felt like something that needed to happen before the next thing could, the way you have to clear a table before you can set it again. Marcus and I had picked that house together. We'd argued about the kitchen tile and the bathroom fixtures and whether the backyard was too small. And we'd signed the papers on a rainy Wednesday and gone for celebratory barbecue at a place that has since closed. And both of us had been so certain, the way you are when you're 30 and have recently gotten everything you wanted, that the hard part was behind you. The hard part was not behind us. But that's not the story's fault. That's just the truth about hard parts. I'm living in East Nashville now, 2 streets over from Meg. I have a small house with a front porch and a lemon tree in the yard that was there when I moved in, and that I have not managed to kill, which I consider an achievement. I work remotely. I run on Tuesday and Thursday mornings, and I have a standing dinner with Meg every Sunday that I do not miss. Marcus's Nashville Sounds poster is in my second bedroom. I'm not ready to take it down. Maybe I won't be for a long time. That's okay. There's no deadline on any of this. What I know is this. My husband spent the last months of his life making sure that when the moment came, I would not be without the truth. He did not leave me alone. He did not leave me blind. He left me a drive with my name on it and a letter that said, "I love you," more than I ever said out loud, and he trusted me to do the rest. I did the rest. I'm still here. I'm still doing the rest. And if you're going through something that feels impossible right now, if you're sitting in a house that used to mean something different, or holding information you don't know what to do with, or trying to figure out who you can trust, I want you to hear this. The truth does not require you to be ready for it. It only requires you to be brave enough to look. Thank you for being here. If this story meant something to you, please subscribe to Her Dark Revenge. I'll see you in the next one.